Now let me tell you something about the Amish that nobody in your garden centre is going to tell you. They do not buy fertilizer. They do not buy pest spray. They do not have apps on their phones telling them when to water. They do not attend seminars on soil health or watch videos about raised bed gardening systems that cost $800 to build. And their gardens, Lord have mercy. Their gardens will make yours look like you gave up in April. I have lived close enough to Amish communities most of my long life to watch how they work. And what I noticed, what struck me from the very beginning, was not how hard they worked. It was how little they wasted. Every single motion had a purpose. Every technique had been handed down and tested and refined over generations until what was left was only what actually worked. They are not doing less because they are lazy. They are doing less because they figured out what matters. There is a difference, and most of the modern gardening world has not figured that out yet, despite all their technology and their YouTube tutorials and their expensive raised beds. Let me show you what I mean. The soil comes first, always. They told you to start with seeds. Buy the right seeds, the right variety, the right brand, and then they sold you bags of fertilizer to dump on whatever poor dirt you happen to have underneath. Child, please. You cannot put a good seed in dead ground and expect miracles. The Amish know that. They have always known that. Twice a year, every year, Amish families spread aged horse manure across their garden beds. Spring and fall. Not more, not less. In spring, it feeds the soil as it wakes up. In fall, it breaks down slowly over winter, creating what I can only describe as the richest, darkest, most alive earth you have ever put your hands into. By the time planting season comes around again, that ground is ready. Genuinely ready. My grandmother did the same thing. We had a mule named Edgar, who was bad-tempered and opinionated, but produced the finest garden amendment you could ask for. Grandmother would spread that manure every fall before the first freeze, turn it in lightly, and by spring that garden bed smelled like something living, rich and dark and ready. The science calls what happens in healthy soil a thriving microbiome. That is just a fancy way of saying your dirt is full of tiny living things, bacteria and fungi and organisms you cannot see, all working together to break nutrients down into a form your plants can actually use. When that community of life is healthy and active, your plants grow stronger with less effort from you. When you dump synthetic fertilizer on dead soil, you are feeding the plant directly but killing that underground community. You become dependent on the bag. The Amish never became dependent on anything they had to buy. On top of the manure, kitchen scraps go directly into garden rows. Vegetable peels, coffee grounds, eggshells, not into a separate compost bin that needs turning and managing. Directly into the soil where next season's crops will grow. The nutrients go exactly where they will be needed. No extra steps, no extra work. That is the Amish way. Remove everything unnecessary and do what remains perfectly. Plant when nature says so, not when the calendar says so. They want you to follow the date on the seed packet, the last frost date in your zip code, the planting schedule in the gardening book that some person with a degree wrote for a general audience that may or may not live anywhere near you. The Amish watch oak trees. When the oak leaves reach the size of a squirrel's ear, they plant corn. That is the signal. Not April 15th, not 6 weeks after the last frost. The oak leaves, because oak trees respond to soil temperature, not air temperature, and your seeds care about soil temperature. A cold, wet soil will rot your corn seed no matter what the calendar says. But when those oak leaves are the size of a squirrel's ear, the ground is reliably warm enough for germination. I love that. I have always loved that. The tree is the thermometer. The forest is the almanac. Free, accurate, and it has never once needed a software update. Root vegetables get planted 6 weeks before the first expected frost. Carrots, beets, turnips. They grow in the warmth but finish maturing in the cool, and that cool weather converts their starches into sugars. A carrot pulled from cold ground is sweeter than anything you will find in a store. My children used to eat them straight from the garden like candy, dirt and all. I let them. That dirt was clean. I knew what was in it, and nothing goes in all at once. The Amish plant in succession. New rows of lettuce every 10 days from April through August. Beans in early June, then again in July, then again in late August. The result is a continuous harvest instead of a single overwhelming flush that rots faster than you can eat it. I have watched modern gardeners plant everything in one enthusiastic weekend and then spend the next 2 months drowning in zucchini while their lettuce bolts and their beans get tough. Patience and timing. Those 2 things alone will double what your garden produces. Let the plants work together. Here is where the Amish do something that looks like magic, but is actually just old knowledge. 3 plants, corn, beans and squash, planted together in the same space, working as a team. The corn grows tall and gives the beans something to climb. The beans pull nitrogen from the air and fix it into the soil, feeding both the corn and the squash. The squash spreads wide along the ground, shading out weeds and keeping the moisture in. Each plant is doing something for the others. This is called companion planting, and the research confirms what the Amish have known for centuries. 3 plants grown together this way can produce up to 40% more food than the same plants grown separately. 40%. From the same amount of ground, with no extra fertilizer and no extra water. That number should bother you if you have been gardening in neat, separate rows your whole life. It bothered me when I first really sat with it. Calendula goes in every few feet along the borders. Those bright orange flowers are not decoration. They produce a scent that drives aphids, whiteflies and certain beetles away. Basil planted next to tomatoes improves the flavour of the tomatoes and repels hornworms, the large green caterpillars that can strip a tomato plant overnight. Nasturtiums near cucumber mounds attract beneficial insects that eat pests, while keeping cucumber beetles and squash bugs at a distance. The garden becomes its own protection system. The plants defend each other. You are not fighting pests. You have arranged things so that the pests find your garden inhospitable and move along to someone else's. That is working smarter. Every time. Water deep. Water at the right time. Water less than you think. They told you to water every day. Keep the soil moist. Check on it constantly. And so people stand outside every evening with a hose, spraying the tops of their plants, feeling responsible. The Amish water deeply twice a week, and they water at ground level, never overhead. When water goes deep, roots follow it down. A plant with deep roots can withstand drought, heat and stress because it is drawing moisture from far below the surface where it stays cool and available. A plant watered shallowly every day develops roots that stay in the top inch of soil. The first hot, dry week, that plant falls apart. Watering in the morning gives plants time to dry through the day. Watering at the surface instead of overhead means the leaves never stay wet overnight. Fungal diseases like blight and mildew need wet leaves to take hold. This one simple change, stop wetting the leaves, eliminates most fungal problems without any spray or treatment at all. And then there is mulch. 8 centimetres of organic material laid around every plant. Grass clippings, straw, shredded leaves. This acts like a blanket over the soil. It cuts evaporation dramatically. The Amish cut their watering needs roughly in half just by mulching consistently, and that mulch slowly breaks down and feeds the soil at the same time. It is doing 2 jobs while you do something else. My 3rd husband, God rest his patient soul, did not believe in mulching, said it looked untidy. I mulched anyway because I had been gardening longer than he had been alive and I knew what worked. That man came around eventually. They usually do. Rain barrels positioned under downspouts collect what falls freely from the sky. Rainwater has no chlorine, no fluoride, and a naturally balanced pH that plants prefer. 1 centimetre of rain on a reasonable-sized roof produces enough water to carry a large garden through 2 dry weeks. The Amish waste nothing. Not effort, not water, not anything the good Lord sends their way. Save your seeds. Improve them every year. Every spring gardeners buy new seeds. The catalogue comes, the excitement builds, money gets spent, and those seeds are bred for uniformity and shelf appearance and shipping durability, not for flavour. Not for your specific soil, not for your specific climate. The Amish save seeds from their best plants every single year. The strongest tomato, the most productive bean, The squash that survived the dry week in August without wilting. Those seeds get saved, labelled and stored, planted again next year. And the year after that. Over time, through generations of this selection, something remarkable happens. Those seeds adapt. They become tuned to the local soil, the local rainfall patterns, the local pest pressures. A bean variety saved and selected for 20 years in one specific place will consistently outperform a commercial variety grown in the same spot because it has been bred, plant by plant, season by season, for exactly that place. Seeds are stored on old window screens laid across attic rafters. Warm, with good airflow, no direct sun. 2 to 3 weeks of drying and they store clean through winter. No special equipment, no vacuum-sealed packets. Just screens and time and a cool, dry place. Tomato seeds need a brief fermentation. 3 days in a small jar with their gel. This sounds complicated, but it takes about 5 minutes of actual effort. The fermentation removes a coating that inhibits germination and also eliminates seed-borne diseases. After 3 days you rinse them, dry them on a screen, and you have seed stock that will germinate better than anything you bought. The Amish think about their seeds the way they think about their families. You select for the best qualities. You protect them carefully. And you invest in the next generation even when you will not personally see the full result. Handle the weeds before they handle you. Most gardeners wage war on weeds. They pull and spray and suffer and never quite win because they are always responding after the fact. The Amish prevent. There is a difference. A thick layer of mulch blocks 90% of weed germination before it starts. Weed seeds need light to germinate. Cover the soil and you cover the light. No light, no weeds. The few that push through are pulled immediately after rain when the soil is soft and the roots release cleanly. In dry, hard ground, pulling a weed tears the top off and leaves the root. In wet ground, you pull the whole thing in one motion and you are done. Cultivating in the morning cuts weeds when they are at their most vulnerable. Young weed seedlings have tender stems. The morning sun dries them out before they can recover and re-root. An hour of morning work on young weeds prevents 4 hours of mature weed removal later. The Amish never let weeds get comfortable. Early and consistent attention means they never face the overwhelming, overgrown situation that causes most gardeners to give up in August. Proper spacing between plants creates a living canopy that shades the soil and prevents new weeds from establishing. The crops themselves become weed suppressors once they reach full size. That is the garden doing the maintenance work for you. Extend the season with simple structures. Cold frames built from salvaged windows laid over low wooden boxes can extend your growing season by 6 to 8 weeks on each end. Spring planting starts earlier. Fall harvests last longer. The glass captures daytime heat and releases it slowly at night, creating a pocket of warmth that keeps tender plants alive through temperatures that would otherwise end them. Frost cloth made from worn bedsheets, old curtains, lightweight fabric, draped over plants on nights when frost threatens, can protect down to several degrees below freezing. Plants that would be dead by morning are alive and producing the following week. The Amish do not throw away worn fabric. It goes to the garden. Everything gets a second purpose. South-facing walls and stone structures absorb heat through the day and radiate it back at night. A tomato planted against a stone wall or a south-facing fence gets 2 extra weeks of productive growing time compared to the same plant in open ground. The microclimate created by that wall is measurably warmer, both in air temperature and in soil temperature, and plants respond to every extra degree. Cold hardy crops planted in late summer, kale, Brussels sprouts, winter radishes, continue producing well into frost season. And here is what most people do not know. After a light frost, kale gets sweeter. The plant converts its starches to sugars in response to cold. A frost-kissed kale leaf is better than anything you pick in summer. God built the sweetness in. You just have to be there at the right time to collect it. Keep pests away without spending a cent. Soap and water. 1 tablespoon of plain dish soap to 1 litre of water in a spray bottle. This breaks down the outer coating of soft-bodied insects like aphids and whiteflies. They dehydrate and die within hours, cost nearly nothing. Works as well as commercial pesticides on the insects it targets while leaving bees and beneficial insects completely unharmed. Coffee grounds spread around the base of plants create a barrier that slugs and snails refuse to cross. The texture irritates them and the caffeine acts as a repellent. The grounds also add nitrogen to the soil as they break down. One substance doing two jobs at once. The Amish appreciate that. Crushed eggshells around stems stop cutworms, the caterpillars that come out at night and cut young plants off at the base. Sharp edges deter them. The calcium from the shells also prevents blossom end rot in tomatoes and peppers. Your breakfast leavings become your garden's night security. Cayenne pepper powder mixed with water, a few tablespoons per gallon, applied to leaves and stems keeps rabbits, deer and groundhogs away. They taste it once and do not come back. Rain washes it off and you reapply weekly. Safe for the animals, unpleasant enough to redirect them elsewhere. These solutions work because they interfere with pest behavior rather than poisoning the entire ecosystem. The good insects, the bees, the ladybugs, the predatory wasps ignore soap and pepper and eggshells entirely. The pests find conditions unfavorable and leave. The garden remains in balance rather than sterile. Work together. Do not do it alone. Now I want to say something that has nothing to do with soil or seeds or timing. The Amish garden the way they do everything else. Together. Planting days bring neighbours to multiple gardens in sequence. One family's beds get prepared, then the next, then the next. What would take one person a week of exhausting solo effort takes a group a single energetic day. Seeds get shared. Knowledge gets shared. When one family develops a tomato that resists a local blight, those seeds spread through the whole community within a season. Bulk purchases of compost, mulch and supplies get split among multiple families. The cost drops by 60 or 70% when you buy at wholesale quantities and divide the load. Older gardeners teach younger ones not in a classroom but standing in a row, hands in the soil, doing the actual work side by side. When someone gets sick, their garden does not suffer. The community steps in without being asked. The beans still get picked. The tomatoes do not rot on the vine, because the assumption is that you take care of each other. That is not a gardening technique. That is a way of being human. I want to leave you with something that goes beyond all of this. The reason the Amish garden the way they do is not efficiency for its own sake. It is not because they figured out a clever system. It is because they understand that they are working with something alive. The soil is alive. The seeds carry life forward. The seasons are God's rhythm and you work within that rhythm or you fight it and exhaust yourself. They are not trying to dominate their garden. They are trying to participate in it. I have had my hands in the soil my entire life. My mother's mother taught me how to read the earth, how to smell whether it was ready, how to know by feel whether it needed more water or more air. That knowledge did not come from a book. It came from years of paying attention to something that was already trying to teach me. The biggest mistake modern gardening makes is treating the garden as a problem to be solved with the right products and the right information. It is not a problem. It is a relationship. And like every relationship worth having, it rewards patience, consistency, respect, and showing up even when you do not feel like it. A garden will teach you things about yourself that nothing else will. It will show you what happens when you rush. It will show you that you cannot control everything and that trying to ruins what you could have had. It will show you that small, steady effort done faithfully over time produces more than any dramatic intervention. That is not just gardening wisdom, that is living wisdom. Every season I have spent in that garden has given me more than food. It has given me peace, something to tend, something that depends on me and rewards me in return. Purpose does not have to be grand to be real. Sometimes it is just knowing that there are seeds in the ground that need you to show up tomorrow morning. Now, I have some beds that need checking before the light goes. You go plant something.